things off with Transformers War for Cybertron. So, Ricardo, if you don't mind, I just want you to just kind of do the run through of what this is about, right? So, for me though, just to kick things off, I am not familiar with well, I would say like I'm not versed in all things Transformers lore, right? So,
Right.
I believe the whole War for Cybertron thing is actually based off of a video game, but the series itself is
Right.
not related to it at all, right? So, what I got just from the trailer that I saw that, okay, we in Cybertron, is early Megatron, early Optimus Prime, all that jazz. So, it's not going to be, well, basically, it's going to lead up to what we have seen in the live action movies. That will be like, Michael Bay's Transformers Anthology and Bumblebee, right? So, all this stuff happening in Cybertron, war between the Autobots and the Decepticons. You know that,
Right.
right?
Right.
But for me now, I was a little bit worried that I would not understand. Like, I'll get a gist of what's going on, but I felt like it would help if I
Um.
was more
No, they
in, like,
do.
a huge fan. Like, I knew as much about the
Right. No,
characters to
they
really
did.
enjoy them.
Right. So it's effectively a trilogy of material coming forward. So what we've seen
Right.
so far is Siege,
Uh-huh.
chapter 1, which is about 6 episodes, and yeah, it's just the kind of the opening to the war itself, like actually explaining why the war exists, why it is the way it is. Um, they just kind of just fleshing out everything.
Mm-hmm.
The original narrative of the Transformers, effectively, that we know from the original cartoons, the original G1 cartoons. So they just
Yeah.
kind of retell those stories. That's effectively what they do. But they decide to say, all right, Larry, um, give it some depth, give it some, just give it some
Some
nuance.
gravitas.
Well, nuance too. Yeah,
Nuance. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. You're right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they, they just decide to say, all right, they start off with, so the first episode is, have a treaty. Um, they're talking about Megatron and Optimus, their relationship. They kind of surprisingly make Megatron, actually like sympathetic in this for some reason. But it kind of worked for the most part.
Yeah,
Um,
I felt it. I felt it too.
yeah, then well, it start off with recruiting Bumblebee. That was like the first one. Then
Yeah,
we
and
get
well, just to
into
touch on Bumblebee, just sorry to cut you there, but just to touch on Bumblebee for a bit. What's interesting here is that he's neither Autobot nor Decepticon. He's just more of
right, yeah,
a
a
mercenary,
neutral
just kind of
party.
hired to find
Right,
energon cubes, basically.
right, yeah, yeah. So yeah, as I said, they make things nuanced. Then then we get, then what I think episode 2 is with they bring in Shockwave, and then they start talking about the
Yes.
Allspark. Then they get into, they start bringing in all the other characters, so Ultra Magnus, Ratchet. um they get into, well, the space bridge idea itself, which was
Hmm.
from Transformers 3 in the movies. And then then Wheeljack, and then they bring in the last episode, effectively is just with Megatron, to deal with Optimus, and then the little kind of a twist at the end there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the thing with this. Okay, so I know people like this, but this is what you call how to describe it, boy. This is the Man of Steel of Transformers. It's that, like, you're trying to
Oh,
give this thing
seriously?
depth,
What do you
but
mean?
it
It's too dark for
no, it's not.
what it's
Yeah,
supposed to be?
yeah. They're trying to be all serious with it. Like, people like this. I get people like this, but it just, I'm not feeling it per se, and it's because I not partial towards Transformers overall narrative, but to me, Transformers is not something you're not supposed to give nuance to, but they're trying to, and I like it, but I didn't. It was just this one of those not for me kind of things. That's why I wasn't feeling it all that much. So that's about me with that. I mean, it good. I think I'd wait till the other two parts come out, and then I'll probably judge it a little better. But as it was, I was just normal with it. It good, like it good. If I suppose if you're not familiar with Transformers and you're not a fan, you might be into this one. But I wasn't into it. It come and gone for me, and I just, I suppose I'll wait for the other parts to go through. But as it was okay. It was fine. It's the same animation people who did the Castlevania stuff, right? It's the same animation company.
That will be on Rooster Teeth. I don't think so. I don't think Rooster Teeth will involve. Well, all right. Let me just check quickly and
Check if it's
see.
the same
I
animation.
Yeah,
I mean,
actually,
the
no, they
50?
weren't involved with Castlevania. Actually, did
No, never
Red
seen.
versus Blue. They did
I know.
RWBY. I haven't never saw that actually, to be honest.
Right.
But no, they didn't work on Castlevania at all.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Right. So it's all right. Sorry. It's not Castlevania. It's RWB. I was thinking of Ruby. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people think is a disappointment, but I was fine with that mostly.
All right.
Um, Here's the thing. I think what happened to it is that is the writing because oh gosh, I was supposed to mention the fellow was the creator, the original creator of RWBI. He died in 2015, and I felt that level of creative forces was missing in this. For me.
Oh, I
So
mean, it should be like well, a little bit more
yeah,
self-aware,
right.
kind of a
Yeah,
little tongue-in-cheek a
he
bit.
was he was a good storyteller.
Hmm.
With respect to this material. But I don't know. I just I with it. I into it. I dig it, but I just not. I think it's because it's so they're trying to make it nuanced now. It's like, but Transformers, I ain't feeling any nuanced Transformers thing, Jared. Like that's not really working for me. It's not gelling for me. It's too discordant. So
Hmm.
that's why, yeah, it's up to you if you're into that or not. But I feel sorry, this had to be kind of straightforward, black and white for me, and decide to like make it this, try to do this with it. And again, okay, so as I say, if I had to wait for the other two parts. If they could do, if chapter two a little better, then I'll be fine with it. I don't know when that's coming out. But as it was, it's like, yeah, I like this, but I don't love it. It's fine, right? But I don't know.
All right. So here's the thing, right? I I actually get where it is you're coming from, and I totally understand where you're coming. Well, I totally understand, right? Your view on this, right?
Right.
For me personally, while I was watching this, though, I felt like I see with us because we grew up on the '80s cartoon. We grew up on the movie, of course, Beast Wars, Beast Machines, to a lesser extent. You know what I mean? We kind of know things. We just kind of know the formula. You know what I mean?
Right.
Good robot, good transformers, bad transformers, big device that they have to acquire, world domination, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, right? But I imagine with this movie, sorry, with this movie, with this chapter, if you want to call it that, it felt like okay, so I know because it's a mega franchise, it didn't just limit itself to just like toys and shows and whatnot. But I felt like maybe there were like comics involved, and I felt like I forgot the name of the comic studio. I think it's IDW. I think it is. I know they had
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
like a bunch of Transformers books, over the years, comic books. And I felt like this is what this series was tapping into, like like
Right.
where they went deep into it now. But for me, and I imagine same for you, Ricardo, I know nothing of these comics at all, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't go in deep. I mean, let me just get this out of the way. This franchise has a very, very, very diehard
No, it's yeah.
yeah,
No,
the
it's
fan
yeah.
base of this
It's
is ridiculous, and I felt like this was tailor made for them, right?
right.
Here's the thing, though. Quite like this, literally a few hours ago before we met up here, I watched a review of the show, and apparently some fans, some diehard fans, not liking this. I think it's really because, well, this blew me away. Is that they actually changed a lot of stuff from what the original story was. I
Right.
was like,
Which
okay, because
again,
I kind of
stuff
read
like
it
that.
as, guy just kind of read it as, all right, well, this technically supposed to happen this way, I guess, but I guess the writers have a little leeway so they could change certain things. But I just kind of viewed everything as, oh, this is what happened, this is law, this has to be. You know what I mean? That's how
Right.
I kind of went into this. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. No. Yeah. They change a bunch of stuff, but stuff like that don't bother me if you make smart calls. And for the most part, to make smart calls, my issue is tone. Again,
Right.
I don't get why you're doing the whole. I really don't follow. I don't get why you do make this nuance now. And that's the problem because as I say, it's discordant because it have the original Transformers designs on this, but you're making it all nuance in terms of tone. So again, it's the Man of Steel problem now.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
yeah.
you're given is original, old is aesthetic, but it's just weird now. It's feeling a little off now. Like you see, okay,
Okay.
with Michael Bay, he did his own thing. So it's up to you to like that or not, right?
Right.
But with this now, they trying to appeal to old fans, but like it's old fans who grow up and it's still is that
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
suppose. No, here's the thing: if this came out, I don't know, 10 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago, I might have liked this more. But I think it's just one of those things that just kind of come out too late for me, so I can't appreciate it now. It's all
Right.
right, it's all right, it's all
Um,
right, like it's
I
good.
I know what the problem is, right? Um, and this is not a knock at the fan base itself. It's just merely a franchise to sell toys, right? That's what it is, right?
Right,
Just like
right.
GI
No,
Joe is the same thing, right? But it's the same alphabet, right? But not saying that you shouldn't add backstory and nuance and lore into this story, because I know
right,
it have the fan base who love the Starscreams, the Megatrons, the Optimus Prime, the Ultra Magnus, all these characters, right? But still, it kind of feels like for me when I was watching, it's like, but all this is kind of interesting, and how it's all brooding and dark and talking about war and the
right,
threat of extinction, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, is it supposed to be about robots that turn into vehicles and just do
right.
little shit?
That's
Like,
no problem.
that's it.
Okay, yeah. No, no. It's as I say, is a Man of Steel problem, right? Where
Mhm.
where you're putting quote unquote realism into something that really don't fit that. So you had to do a good job
That's
of
right. Yeah,
squaring that. And like, okay, Man of Steel is a movie I still defend to this day. This have the
I
same
do too.
thing. Right, but when you're making you're making that promise. Now your brain now started to do two sets of calculations when it comes to like, well, what exactly are supposed to consider realistic and what not? Which is this? Okay,
Yeah,
this realistic, but not this. And again, because that DCEU and this serious business fan base kind of sour man the last couple of years about how we should look at movies and these kind of things. I have almost no patience for that anymore. Like that whole realistic serious business, taking things seriously kind of mindset, just kind of sour in my head now. So to see this now apply to something again, it come too late to the discussion. Is one of those, right?
right,
That's
right.
what it
I
is.
got you. I got you.
But if,
And
as I
I just
say,
want what?
yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead. Yeah, yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to mention the good, just to get the good out of the way.
Right,
I thought that the voice acting was
right.
solid.
Yeah,
No, didn't get the old actors, no Peter Cullen, no Frank
yeah,
Welker to come in to fill the shoes of Optimus or Megatron, respectively. But the cast that they got here, I mean, they did a job. I mean, I
yeah,
actually like how they did the voice distortion, of course. So like for guys like
Sound,
Soundwave and all
sound
that, you
wave,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
of
He
course.
sounds
Yeah,
dope as hell. I love that.
yeah,
More or less bringing back old characters like Ultra Magnus, characters I literally forgot existed.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Ironhide and stuff like that. Um, and just the whole look. Sorry, well, yeah, look. I should say the aesthetic took a while for me to get on board too. But it's
No,
I
is
actually
that?
got kind of used to it though. Even though for the life of me, I can't really pinpoint the type of style it is, because
No, yeah,
it
it's
feels
that.
more like CG, but it has a kind of cell shaded kind of
No, no, it's
thing.
it's like it's the machinima, like very advanced machinima stuff. Now, if you remember something called haloid, um, it's that, right? It's I forget what was the guy's name, but he died some years back. Oh shit, what's his man name? The animator. Um,
Animators be dying these days, but
Monty Ohm, Monty Ohm is the guy, right? Is
okay,
this guy Monty Ohm is his name? He right. So Monty Ohm did something called back in the days called haloid, and he was brought on by Rooster Teeth to do Ruby, right? When Ruby was out. And so it's that same style. But Monty, he died in 2015. But he was like an interesting, like visual storyteller now, back then. Now. And he didn't, they kind of follow from his aesthetic and style. So it's all over this now. That same approach and everything. So if you
okay,
appreciate it, if you appreciate just animation, um, yeah, it's good in that way. But because that style of animation is something I could only appreciate on the internet, but not on but nowhere else. Like it's not an
yeah,
animation company.
but not on something that you
It's
can watch
it's still
on your plasma TV, basically.
it still feels a bit too amateur for me.
Okay,
But is Rooster Teeth, come full circle, right? Is Rooster Teeth, if you're a fan of them and you like Red versus Blue, I mean, I kind of stopped liking that a hot minute now, but if you're into that, cool, it's fine.
all right,
It's that. So
yeah,
the animation, I'm not knocking it for that because it's like it feels it good, but it don't feel like on point. It don't feel top of the line professional, right? It just feels like good. Like it still feel like a fan film kind of thing, but it's still good. And again, it's the fan film with a lot of money type situation, right? It's
yeah,
a fan
yeah,
film, but they have a budget, right? That's what it
right.
is. And uh, he was a natural talent, self-taught, web-based animation guy. But he and then they're following from his aesthetic and style. So I forget who the actual animators are of this particular thing, but it's clearly the Monty Ohm influence, right?
Right.
Um, it's that. Yeah, so
All right.
it's but I don't know. There's not a complaint of mine of this.
No,
Like
no.
there's not something that's bother me too much or anything like that. I could watch it and enjoy it as it is. Yeah, it's a little sluggish and clunky for my liking, but whatever, it's Transformers, so you could get away with that. That's why it's not a problem for this. Like
Yeah.
you just see it with, like if it was humans, like with Ruby, it's supposed to be characters supposed to be well effectively humans, right? It's wizards or whatever it is. But so that is look kind of weird. But with Transformers, is you could light slide, right? Because it's big
Okay.
clunky robots anyway. That
Yeah.
don't that don't bother me. My problem is that we have Megatron being all moody and you know all contemplative and things like what? That's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, yeah, but
And
I
if
do appreciate the effort at least
right,
to kind of flesh out both Optimus and Megatron. Have them,
right,
well, as I keep using this word nuance now. So I like the fact, although I don't love the fact, but I like the fact that this is like early I am Optimus
right,
Prime, where he will make calls, but he kind of makes the wrong decision at times. It's
right,
like, all right, well, I take it about the greater good, but people around you kind of like, you really sure that's like the right move? Joe? Like, we're supposed to be trusting you now. And also, like, his relationship with Ultra Magnus, where Ultra is like,
right,
yo, just sign the treaty now. It's like, no, 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 no. These guys trying to wipe us out, so no treaty, right? Also, like
right,
with Megatron now, where it's like, well, we were, all I don't know if this is part of law or not. Like, we were like bottom feeders, basically. We were lower class, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
transformers, and now this is our chance to rise. But my camp now, like, all they doubting me now, all they doubting what I doing here right now. Like look at where we were before. You know what I mean? So I like those little things about it. I
right,
will admit, though, I find that the show kind of spends a lot. The series, I should say, spends a little too much time on these little contemplative moments. Like, should we trust this person? Should we not trust this person? Is this person okay or whatever? You know what I mean? Instead of just giving us the goods, though, the action. And yes, there is action, but not a lot of it. I know that will disappoint a lot of fans. For me, I was just like, all right, action is okay, but I really kind of wanted more now. This is not me being spoiled by the Michael Bay films, right?
right, right.
Couple more things. Once again, because this is Transformers, yes, there were times where it's like, oh wait, who's this character? Who's that character? Who's that character? But that's just like a minor nitpick, really, because yeah, this is clearly for the diehard fans, right? So you had to know
Right.
who characters are. But yeah, at times it's just like, right, who's this? Who's this? You know what I mean? Even though you might see this character show up like 5 minutes
Yeah.
earlier, right? And where they stop it off, I'll admit I'm actually kind of interested to see where they go next with it, though.
Right.
But yeah, like you, Ricardo, I'm not in I'm not in a huge rush to see where the story goes next, though. But I
Well,
would like to
yeah,
see it get better, at
you're
least.
right. As I say, I'll giving this a chance as it is because I want to see where they could. The problem is that again because you're trying to make Transformers nuance, it's kind of weird. But I'd swallow that, and if you could swallow it, you're fine. And so at least it's not an hour long thing. They decide 20 episodes, 20 minutes per episode. That's fine. So I don't have an issue with that. I just run through it relatively quickly. So it was just like watching basically a 90-minute movie effectively. Stuff like that, then yeah, it was fine. Again, it boiled down to that aesthetic if you want to mix nuance with Transformers. That is the only issue.
Yeah,
And if you're into that, fine.
yeah,
This kind of works, right? If you're not
right,
into that, and I am not into this, it is kind of weird and kind of tedious if you think about it. It's like all of this
yeah,
politics
yeah.
and
All this
treaties
the
and
politics and stuff. Like, come on, get
and it's
to
like
get to the
and
the,
it's
the shooting and stuff.
but the
And
thing is
well, funny thing is, like, oddly enough, there's not much, there's not that much. Maybe I'm wrong, but not that much transforming per se, though. At least cool
right.
moments of
Well,
transforming. Once again, as
you
us
could
being
tell
spoiled by the Michael Bay films, but really more from what we grew up on. The 80s cartoons, though.
right.
Yeah,
Well, I know all of that is like more like practical problems. You could tell that they didn't want to transform, like transforming is cost money, and they did not animate that very well. As I say, if Montague was still alive, you'd probably get more of that. Not sure, but it's fine. The stuff don't bother me as much as I can. Anyway, whatever.
yeah. But in closing,
As
though,
it is, all the
yeah,
bad talking, I give it. All the bad talking, I give it as it is. I give it a 7 out of 10. Because it again, because my bad judgment is judging it on just that aesthetic call, but that's not
right,
really something I should make a call on per se, because I could see
And say
somebody
it's
totally
like the
liking
worst
this.
thing because of that. Okay, I got you.
Right, right. So that's just me. But this shockingly turned me off because of that. Now. And I think it's not because of it on its own. It's because of the nature of the conversation of how we should be talking about nuance mixed with our comic books and our thing now. How deep it should be, who does get away with it. And because that whole discussion gets sour in the last couple of years, I mean, you literally had people have a complete meltdown over a girl arms in a video game, right? In the mushroom zombie game, right? So stuff like that, like them, the conversation of what should be realistic and not kind of over, to me is now is all theme and aesthetic right now, in my opinion, for me. Sorry to say it. That's basically, and I think Transformers is like a perfect hotbed for something like that, because it's fucking Transformers. Like, it's how I supposed to give a shit about this now? Yet, back in the 1980s movie, they make it cry over Optimus, right? So it's like whatever. But that was just
Yeah,
straightforward. But this,
exactly. It just kind of happened, and
it's one thing to
it
have
just
you
moved
care
on
about
from it.
it.
Yeah.
Right, but it's one thing to have you care about a character and a set of characters, but for straightforward plot is another thing entirely to decide to make this big, like, realistic, politics and class system and all kind of thing that's now. But all of this for Transformers, right? No, that really walking in my head for me, though. However, Simultaneously, still, I liked it for what it was, as it is, and I'll say I'll still watch the other parts, but that whole being too realistic and giving characters too much nuance just don't gel with Transformers. Like, sorry to say it, but yeah, you had to be straightforward with it. I don't know. It's me.
All right. Well, I understand. I have a feeling that the people who didn't like this didn't like Siege, maybe didn't like it for that reason. But for
Right.
me, I just thought that, oh, well, this is kind of how it's supposed to be. This is how they were in the comics, and I was just unaware of it because I just didn't care to read the comics. So I said, okay.
Right.
I just kind of treat everything like, okay, well, this is supposed to happen, right? So okay, but still, I just wanted to see more things happen. Like not seeing that hardly anything happens, but I just kind of went in. I mean, it's Transformers War for Cybertron. Like I want to see war, not hear people talk about war. I mean,
But
that kind of stuff.
that's what I'm trying to say now, is that they're trying to do the whole war is hell, and they're more hitting we more getting we call it by not Saving Private Ryan.
Platoon. No.
Yeah, shit. Oh gosh.
Oh gosh.
Full Metal Jacket now. We're more getting that, right?
Yes, yes. It
Yeah.
gave
I was
more
like,
Full
dog,
Metal Jacket than
guys, not right. Or oh gosh, this other movie, famous. Oh gosh.
not
It's
Platoon, right? That's
not
what I was
Platoon,
trying to.
but it's slipping my mind right now. Colonel Clink. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, right. Apocalypse Now, where it's
All
more
right,
about
yeah.
the inner workings of the characters involved, and not about
Yeah.
the war itself.
Yeah.
Right,
And it's like,
exactly.
oh,
Yeah,
Megatron, dog. Like, really?
yeah. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I
Well,
mean, let's see that he should be cookie cutter Saturday morning cartoon villain, even though
right,
that's what we grew up on. But at the same time, like I say before, I just kind of went in thinking this is kind of how it's supposed to be, and this is the approach. All right,
right.
okay, but okay. Well, in general, what I should say before I get to read it, it's like I felt like it was trying to cater a little too much to the diehard fans and the ones who would have the collection of Transformer toys and will give you a whole backstory into what these
Right.
characters did before and after the war in Cybertron. I felt like it was for that crowd, but and
Yeah.
I mean, credit what credit is due. At least is they kind of stick to it, like trying to please them, trying to show us non-diehard fans that there's more to it than meets the eye, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, I still have those who kind of just want to see cool Transformer shit, and we didn't really get here. So you just kind of watch it like, all right, okay. That was how I felt personally. Like, all right, like once again, just kind of treat everything. Okay, this is how it's supposed to be. Is leading up to something, and then when it kind of ends, it's like, all right, well, that happened. No, now what? Like it's almost like the story now begins at this point. Now, you know what I mean? But for what it was, I'll give this a very light 3.5 out of 5. It's still worth checking out. I mean, regardless of
Yeah.
the gripes that we had with it, I mean, forgive us, we're not diehard fans, but still, it's just still amusing to me that even diehard fans didn't really feel this one. Well, some of them, you know what I mean, but. I
Right.
mean, if I would say this is for those who kind of got who kind of were pissed off by what they got with the Michael Bay films, and appreciated what the Bumblebee
Right.
film did. I think this is
Right.
for them. But
It's
for
that.
everybody else who kind
No,
of
but,
wanna see
but
the
see,
stuff,
Bumblebee, yeah, Bumblebee didn't give any set of nuance or anything like that. It was a straightforward, we know what the story is, right? Bad guys, good guys.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
they didn't try to. This, they give Megatron a whole class system and, like, what? They asked that class consciousness with Megatron. It's like, no, like, what? That doesn't gel it in my head at all, still do. However,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should kind of like look for some article or some video that will explain the law. But to be honest, I really don't
no,
care
but
for
that's
the
the,
law
that's the
at
problem. Is
all.
that it have no set of law that you could explain because in the end of the day, still is robots now. Like I don't know what you could explain to make them to have that class system make sense now. Like that's the problem now. Again, it's the Man of Steel problem, right? You know, you're gelling two styles of thinking that not that you think might gel, but you actually don't gel at all. However,
All right, so let's go into let's move from robots now and let's get to some comic book stuff. Well, technically, right?
more comic
Some
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
more comic book stuff technically,
yeah.
right?
We
But
have a lot of everything is funny books today.
yeah. That's just
Everything
some
is
funny books, right?
everything
So
is funny.
we will yeah, so you'll kick things off with Deathstroke, Knights and Dragons, the movie. And it's one of those titles that you'll kind of ignore, like, what do you mean the movie? And it's only after the fact that I realized that there was this is basically, I'm not sure how much segments they were, right? But they're basically a bunch of segments of one story actually that were
Right,
just put together and released as a film now.
right,
So it's
right,
similar
right, right.
to like oh gosh, this one from a couple of years back, Vixen, that I saw and I was like,
Right,
it's
right,
like
right. That's
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah, it's that same thing. But the
right.
way and then when you think about it, like if you've seen the film actually, it kind of makes sense the way how scenes will or situations will just kind of feed out and then scenes basically will kind of feed out and then go into the next one. It kind of makes sense, right?
Right.
But in the context of it being a film, it doesn't even matter, right? And what it's about basically, it's about Slade Wilson himself, aka Deathstroke. He would be one of the big baddies from the Teen Titans,
Right.
comic books and films and whatnot. He is a mercenary for hire. He's an ultimate badass. He is like technically the equivalent to like what to what Deadpool is. You know what I mean? He's skilled with guns.
Yeah.
He's skilled with a samurai sword and all that kind of stuff, right? But in this case here, they really go to the way to flesh out this character. So he's more than just this guy who dresses oddly in in this brightly colored outfit for a mercenary. I mean, think about it, right? He
Yeah.
has a wife and named Adeline Kane. He
Yeah.
has a son as well, and through some circumstances, it kind of starts up pretty early. An old rival of his called the Jackal shows up and threatens
Right.
to kill his wife and son. Right. One thing we see next, and the boy survives, but he becomes mute because his throat was slit. Right,
Right.
and
Yeah.
this affects the relationship between Slater's wife, obvious thing, and it's even worse because she didn't even know that the man was a mercenary for hire. Right. And then the show goes a little bit deeper, showing how he got his regenerative powers. So yeah,
Right.
basically he can take a lot of bullets and just
Yeah.
he could take a lot of abuse and basically just survive. So he has a kind of Wolverine healing factor kind of thing. And we introduce now to the to Hive, right, which is this clandestine organization. They're all about world
Right.
domination,
Yeah.
and basically they kidnap Slade's son again. They do some stuff to him, and apparently he has powers now, right? So he has
Right.
telekinesis and all, basically psychic powers, right? And there's another character involved. I don't want to say what she has to do with it, but yeah, it's something kind of serious, which in terms of Slede's life. But yeah, now Slade has to reunite with his wife and basically go and save their son and thwart Hive and all that stuff. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's what Knights and Dragons is about. And in case you're wondering, folks, yes, they do explain the meaning behind that title, Knights and
Right.
Dragons. In a nutshell, it's basically how
Yeah. It is.
Slade sees himself. He sees himself as a knight going up
Right.
against dragons, right? So that's it.
Well, it's a story within a story being told.
Yeah,
In context with him and his son, which is a whole thing.
yeah. Although
I
it's like great, but I kind of understand why the story is just so basic. It didn't even need to be there. It's just
right.
typical. He's a knight and he slays dragons to do
Right.
this. So it's not like the show itself, the story itself in the movie echoes the book itself. It's just that's
Yeah.
just who he kind of sees himself as, but there's no, literal or figurative dragons in this film.
Right.
That's kind of a minor gripe of mine, but yeah. So yeah, what were your thoughts on Knights and Dragons, the movie?
Yeah. Uh, hmm, this looked way too amateur for me to enjoy it. It felt amateur. It felt cheap, but the story is okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna talk about animation
The
in
thing,
a
like,
bit, but
okay,
what?
so if you thought I had the problem was with the animation of the Transformers, this feel amateur. This feel real cheap. This feel real like direction and blocking and whatever it is look kind of crappy. It had some okay action. The story itself wasn't bad. Like for what it was, like we know H.I.V.E, we know Jericho, we know the backstory involving one of the main characters, well, the main villain Gale character, which was a good little piece of drama. That was alright.
Yeah,
Where
it
you
was,
learn about Slade
well
and the
for
other whole
me
thing.
who went in blind. That was a
That was
nice
okay.
choice. I'll give it that. I'll give it that. Yeah.
Right, right. But it just feels so cheap though. Like wow, like this feel real cheap because is when you say because I was watching it and you're telling me about the how it feel like a series of movies stitched together. And it's like, oh yeah, it's that. That is why it looking like that. And why it feeling like that. They wondered like why the direction so crappy and why this so crappy and why that's so crappy. But as it is, it was just really like straightforward and bland and forgettable. But it was alright. It had nothing to write home about. Like the story was straightforward. The action was okay. Slade was killing people. The dialogue was pretty bad. Like,
Oh
jeez, but
boy.
Slade. Dialogue was kind of bad.
But the voice acting
Everybody
work. The voice acting make up fit though.
was
It make
okay.
up fit.
Yes,
Yeah.
here's the problem. Here's the problem. Slade, in my opinion, Slade is not an interesting character. Like I remember people like a few years back was like, oh, we're gonna have Terminator in our Batman movie. Or the character's called the Terminator. That's a nickname for him, right? And I was like, that's not exciting because Slade is not an interesting character. And it had all these idiots on the internet as usual. Oh, well, Terminator is a badass, and he's such a badass. It's like, yeah, he's just a mercenary badass. In terms of the pantheon of Batman villains, he's like, not even not even cracking the top 10. He's like a general movie villain. He's more like akin to Deadpool, as you say. But it's like I think Deadpool is a parody of him, if I remember correctly.
Is
That's
it
it.
though?
I think so. I can't remember, but it's supposed to be. I think.
Wow,
But it's
I would not have imagined that though. I know they look similar, but I would not have imagined that though. Yeah.
yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
the
I just
idea
thought
now.
it's kind of like mere coincidence that they look the same now. That's my thought.
Right.
Right.
I don't think that Stroke is not that interesting of a character. He works in the Teen Titan cartoons. He's pretty badass, and he's a good Teen Titans villain. They bring in Hive, and Hive is like a big Teen Titans villain enemy, DC enemy, but it ultimately not that interesting as a terrorist group. This was okay. It just the problem is that everything just kind of fell flat, all things considered, and that's kind of my problem with it. It's just all these. I'm just watching it, and I'm surprisingly, shockingly bored out of my mind. Like what? What? Why? I just feeling to go and sleep here. What's going on here? It just too long for what it is. It boring. They not It's again bad direction and bad production. Just kind of dragging on the whole and a story that not that engaging. I felt if they could have just hold together that would have been a little better and make it work. This is not a DC animated movie, so that's why I was trying to look for it in the list. Because it kind of passed on the radar and people was talking about it. And like, what? There's a DC animated movie. It's not apparently. So it's in the same way, in the same vein of that CW animation thing that they did with Vixen, as you said. Yeah, I had nothing else to really talk about per se because it's like it just have a couple twists involving something involving a character with Slade and then the bad guy, like why the bad guy after Slade, and that's I was like, oh, okay, that's why, okay. And then it done. It had some okay action. That was it. Like it have anything to talk about? Seriously?
Well, yeah, all right. So let us get good out of the way, right? That's just a little bit of good. Voice acting, like I said before, actually, dog the voice acting. Michael Chiklis, who plays, you know who he is, right? The
Right.
Shield, Fantastic Four, for better for this,
Yeah.
right? So I thought that he was great
Well,
as Deathstroke.
if you know the yeah, if you know the internet joke, the class or checkless, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just voice acting, I thought was great. I was actually surprised to see certain characters. Some of them I felt were really wasted when you really think about it. Like the Shiva, Bronze Tiger, for example. Like, it was cool seeing them at
Right.
first, and then it's like, okay, you're just there to just have the fans go, wow, you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so that's pretty much all. Like, oh yes, and I felt that the action scenes, and there's a lot of action scenes which I expected, they were very well handled. They give you the goods, right? It's like, well, it's an R-rated film, so yes, you get some over the top stuff. There's even one scene where it's like you're really just whether to replicate Mortal Kombat Legends again with a character
Right.
literally being sliced and diced. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's like okay, all right,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else is just kind of meh for me, right? To be
Yeah.
honest, I
Yeah.
didn't know downright hate this show, but it was kind of meh. Story wise, I get what they were going for. Like, okay, we have to show Deathstroke and kind of really explore his character and why he's so
Yeah.
obsessed with just stopping bad guys and putting bullets in people's heads and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I get that, but it just felt like been there, seeing this. This is some kind of, I don't know, like kids ask parents, some Remo Williams novel, basically. I
Right.
mean, it's
Yeah.
like the same old mercenary for hire. He goes into some foreign country, kills a bunch of baddies. Ever so often, he will hook up with some chick, and well, in this case, it kind of
Yeah.
comes back and bites him, and it's just
Right.
typical stuff, right? Typical
Yeah. Yeah.
80s stuff, basically, right? But
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
nothing really new. And I don't know if what is the idea at this moment with these quote unquote DC animated films. Like, I don't know, or Warner animated films, sorry. If it is that they're just trying to one up the last film or trying to do something kind of special or groundbreaking. But in this case, I didn't really get that. Like, for me, Legends, Mortal Kombat Legends did a lot to, like, compared to this. Just in terms of what it was about. In this case, it's just, all right, let's just find another character that we can make another edgy R-rated animated film. Ooh, here's Deathstroke. Let's just pick him. That's how it felt like to me. Like, you just picking, just picking characters out of a lineup. It's like, let's pick Deathstroke because he kills people, and it would be cool to have a character that's based off a film that's based off an anti-hero, right? So let's do that. But they really could have done more with this too. They could have given us a reason to really give a shit about Deathstroke as a whole. It here is just edgy action stuff for the sake of edgy action stuff. That's what I got. And now to talk about that animation, boy.
Yeah. But, phew. Yeah. Real
Ooh.
cheap. Looking horrible.
Now, at
Cheap.
first, I thought it was style. I thought it was some kind of aesthetic they were going for. There's
No.
this weird thing that they do where it's like, okay, so if you're familiar with pop art, right? They like, if you look, they always have like these little dots that they use in pop art,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
noticed that for like when you see
Smoke. Yeah.
smoke
Smoke and
or
light.
when you
Smoke
see
and
like
light. Yeah.
light, yeah, light and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. I like,
Yeah. I noticed that. Yeah.
all right, but why do? Like you try to set up your own little art style with us. All right, okay. And I was letting the character design slide and all that way, but
Yeah.
ever
Well,
so
that's fine.
often when you will get to like a established shot way, it will be
Yeah.
like,
Look bad.
dude, like you're really taking this shit seriously, way. One scene, slight spoiler. It involves Slade meeting up with Adeline at a park, and
Right.
the
Yeah.
trees for that dog,
Yeah.
my jaw dropped.
Yeah. Look bad.
I was like, you're greenlit this shit. Y'all look at this cell dread. If you're talking animation talk here, right? And said, yes, that's how we want them trees to look. The trees look absurd. Like
Yeah.
ridiculously absurd, Dread. And I'm like, but dog, like for R-rated action film, animated action film, Dread, this is the kind of animation we going with, Dread. Like, okay, as I said before, as it was broken up into segments or clips or episodes, if you will, right? If even if they were like that, it's the animation. There's no excuse for the animation. Look at this piss portrait. You know what I mean? And I was thinking about it in
Yeah.
the back of my mind. They try to cut
Yep.
corners. They
Yeah.
run out of time. They run out of what is going on though. But still, it's like it just takes you out of the story. And that's even worse when yeah, even some of the characters themselves will really look all that good, and it goes even deeper when it goes into action scenes, not looking as good as they should have. Like that scene that I mentioned before, where I felt that they were replicating Mortal Kombat Legends. It looks laughable compared to what we saw in
Yeah. For
in,
real.
in that show because of the animation. So yeah, I mean the animation boy took a huge deep dive boy, from what we
Yeah.
last got with well not with Legends that much, but more with Justice League, War,
Right.
well Apocalypse War.
Right.
Um and yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know why this decision was made to have the animation look like this, right? But it's like I'm sorry, like if the intention was to let the world know that we can make these really hard R, edgy, what I mean, animated films, then dog, at least come with an art style that best fitted. I'm not talking about colors or whatnot, but just the art style itself, just how everything looks. Like don't give me trees and looking like some 5-year-old kid draw it on Microsoft Paint. Like come on, man. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, it looked
But
bad here.
yeah, but last things last, though, Ricardo, I kind of do agree with you. You know, what I mean, the story was just there for me. I watched the film, I was entertained by it. You know, we saw some dope action scenes and whatnot, got some cool fights and whatnot. But other than that, it was just there. You know, what I mean, it's just one of those shows that it's kind of there to just kill time. Like if you just generally have nothing to do, or you just want just some little entertainment, like on a Saturday, a little matinee or like a Saturday night, yeah, give it a look, right? But other than that, I really don't see myself going back to watching this. To be honest, I don't see this having any longevity. And this last thing, last before I get to rating, I really would like to really want to question the choice of having a Deathstroke film to begin with. Because once again, it just feels more like, hey, we just picking edgy characters from our roster to make films of, as opposed to, okay, we're really trying to set up a world here, we're trying to set up a universe here. We really want to let people know, okay, well, if this was good, I can't wait to see what happens next year. This is just kind of, it's just one of those kind of throwaway kind of animated films, to be honest. Well, I should say as part of the whole DC animated roster. This is kind of a throwaway film for me, right? So rated wise, I will give this a lighter, decent 3 out of 5. It's alright for what it is. Not the best thing ever, not the worst thing ever, but my god, the animation, boy, whew, that
Yeah.
that that is a endurance test alone, boy. Just being able to watch that animation and not cringe or not laugh or just treat everything else like how the story does, treat everything else seriously, boy. Like it's just weird. But other than
Yeah.
that, if you just can't get enough of bloody Warner animation, yeah, watch it, man. But other than that, if you're just looking for, well, especially for better animation, if you're looking for a more unique story or something that actually does something a little bit different, yeah, you'll be very disappointed with this one here. So yeah,
Yeah.
last words of
Yeah.
rating on Deathstroke.
Yeah. 5 out of 10. Because it just looked too cheap, too amateurish for me to engage in it. And it's not like it had this great story or anything like that to say, wait, it's so mind blowing or anything like that. Yeah, I'll say everything does look too cheap. That is the goddamn problem. Like, if you think Transformers look cheap, this look real cheap.
And
Like,
there's no
real cheap.
reason for it to look this way though.
I don't
Like
know.
it's DC, it's Warner Brothers. Like come on,
No,
man. Like how much money are they have
nah, yeah, they,
in
they,
all their
they, they,
vault, man? Come on,
nah,
spend
yeah,
some cash, man.
they cut as much corners as they could. So that is that. Pretty much that's just media. There's nothing else to talk about. Just cheap as hell. So yeah, that is that.
Yeah.